To be able to write formulas, first we need to know the charges of the different elements. Everything in group 1A is +1, group 2A is +2, silver is a +1, zinc and cadmium are +2, and aluminum and gallium are +3. The noble gases are going to be 0, the halogens are -1, then we have -2, -3, and -4. So when you're writing the formula of a compound, you're going to first write the symbol and charges. So we have silver, and silver, as we just saw, is a +1. So I'm going to say Ag with a +1. And then acetate, notice that it ends in ATE. If it ends in ATE, it's going to be a polyatomic ion, which is on the back of your periodic table. So acetate is C2H3O2 -1. We cannot change any of the numbers in acetate. So the C2H3O2 is all locked. The only thing that we're crossing is our +1 and our -1. In order for them to cancel out to 0, we would need one of each of them, because +1 and -1 already add up to 0. So we get AgC2H3O2. For our second example, it's an acid. Acids start with hydrogen. So we got H+. And then we have hydro and ic acid. So from our acid rules, here are your acid rules in case you need those. So we had hydroic acid, which means it came from IDE. So if we drop hydro and ic and put IDE, we have cyanide. Cyanide does end in IDE, but it's one of the few polyatomic ions that ends in IDE. So cyanide is Cn with a -1. So we've got a +1 and a -1, and so those should cancel out to give us HCN. For this next one, we've got chromium, which is Cr, and notice that's not one of the ones that we just labeled the charges of, because we don't know the charge of chromium by looking on the periodic table. That's why there's Roman numerals. Those Roman numerals are going to tell us the charge of chromium. In this case, it's a +3. Bromide ends in IDE, so I'm looking on this part of the periodic table and our nonmetals to try to find bromine, and there it is. So bromine, as we saw a second ago, has a -1 charge. So if we're crossing our charges, we're going to say Cr, and again, we're only crossing the numbers for the charges. So if I'm looking for what number goes after Cr, I need to look over here on Br and say that that's a 1. I don't have to write the 1 though, so then I'm going to say Br, and I'm looking over at chromium, and that's going to be a 3. Basically, I need 3 Brs to cancel out a chromium because -3 cancels out with +3. For this next one, we have sulfur, and notice that we have prefixes. The prefixes tell us exactly how many of each atom we have present. So when you have prefixes, we don't care about charges. That's going to be the only time that we don't care about charges. These are the prefixes that you need to know. Make sure that you have those memorized and that you know which one goes with which. So in this problem, it says trisulfur. So sulfur is S, tri is 3. So that means we have 3 sulfurs, and then hexachloride. Chloride is Cl, hexa is 6, so S3Cl6. Notice I'm not reducing it, I'm not crossing it, I'm writing it exactly as it is. 3 sulfur, 6 chlorine. Then this last one, potassium, is right here. So we're going to say K is a +1. And then carbonate ends in ATE. So I need my polyatomic ions. And then carbonate is this one. So that's CO3 with a -2. So remember that carbonate, which is CO3, cannot change. I'm crossing only the charges. So the +1 and the -2, those are getting crossed. The 3 must stay with the O. So I need 2 Ks for every 1 carbonate. Notice that 2 goes over here, that 1 goes over here. And we just don't need to write the 1. You could put in parentheses and put a 1, but when you're typing that into formative, then it will be counted incorrect, even though technically it is the same thing. So again, we have 2 positive Ks to cancel out that -2 on carbonate. Notice +2, -2. Go ahead and pause the video and try these 5 on your own. Restart when you're finished to check your work. So gold is Au, and gold has a charge of +4, because again, the Roman numerals told you the charge. Oxide is an element. So oxide's not on the polyatomic ion list, so that would be oxygen with a -2. So crossing the charges, you get Au2O4, because again, that 2 is going to go with gold, and that 4 is going to go over here with oxygen. But a 2 and a 4 can be divided by 2, so we get AuO2 as our final answer. Cadmium is right here, and cadmium, you need to know, is a +2. Nitrate was a polyatomic ion, and that's down here, so that was NO3 with a -1. So we get CD, and again, NO3 cannot change. So we put a 1, and then NO3. We have to put this in parentheses because that's a polyatomic ion, and when I have more than one polyatomic ion, it must go in parentheses, and then a 2. So I've got 2 -1s cancel out a +2. And again, with the crossing, this 1 is going here. We're just not writing it. And then I'm bringing down my NO3, and this 2 is going over here. But since that's a polyatomic ion, I'm going to put in parentheses and then put my 2 on the outside. Di is 2, tetra is 4. So you should have had C2BR4. Remember that these are prefixes, and if you have prefixes, then we're not crossing the prefixes. It says we have 2 carbons, 4 bromines. So that's our final answer. For the next one, you have an acid, which means we know it starts with H+, and then it was ic acid. So from our acid rules, ic acid came from ATE. So I'm going to drop ic acid and put ATE. So I've got carbonate. If it ends in ATE, then I know it's a polyatomic ion. So CO3 -2. So I need 2 hydrogens to cancel out that carbonate. So again, we're going to put that 2 over here. When I bring the 2, I do not bring the negative, only the number. And then I've got to bring the CO3 because that whole polyatomic ion goes down. And then the 1 goes over here, which we just don't write. And that's how we got H2CO3. And the last one, copper, is not one of the ones we know the charge for, which is why we have Roman numerals telling us the charge. Nitride ends in IDE. So again, we're looking over here on the nonmetals to find nitride. Nitride is nitrogen, and nitrogen has a -3 charge. So I get Cu 3N2. So again, the 3 is going over here, and the 2 is going here. Notice I don't bring the positive, I don't bring the negative, and the numbers are now on the bottom, not on the top.